The gunshot shattered the peaceful morning at the Ruth Waters Healing Center. Grace Waters hit the floor behind the reception desk, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst out of her chest. Glass from the front window rained down like deadly snow. Patients screamed. Someone's baby started crying. And through the broken window, Grace could see him. A tall man in a black suit, holding a gun, walking calmly toward the clinic's front door like he had all the time in the world. "Where is she?" the man shouted. "Where is Grace Waters?" Grace's hands shook as she reached for her phone. But before she could dial, she heard another sound. Tires squealing, car doors slamming, and then Minjun's voice, cold and deadly. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life. If you want to know who this man is, why he's hunting Grace, and whether the clinic survives this attack, make sure you subscribe to this channel and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Now, let me take you back to where this nightmare really began. It was 3 weeks after Minjun Kim opened the Ruth Waters Healing Center, and everything seemed perfect. Too perfect, actually. The clinic was helping about 50 people every day. Old people with aching joints. Young mothers with sick babies. Workers who couldn't afford expensive hospitals. They all came to the clinic, and Grace helped them all with her grandmother's remedies mixed with modern medicine. Minjun's mother, Sung-hee, was there every morning at 8 o'clock sharp. She made tea for the patients, talked to them in their own languages, and made everyone feel like family. Watching her laugh and smile and live, really live, made Minjun happier than he'd ever been. But Minjun was still Minjun. He hadn't completely left his old life behind. He still had men watching the streets. He still heard whispers about rival gangs and dirty deals. And lately, those whispers were making him nervous. "Boss," his right-hand man Dae-young said one evening as they sat in Minjun's office above the clinic. "We've got a problem." Minjun looked up from the clinic's financial reports. "What kind of problem? Remember that pharmaceutical company? Hendrix Biomed? The ones who kidnapped your mother." Minjun's jaw tightened. "What about them? They didn't just disappear after we took your mother back. They've been watching us. Watching the clinic. And boss." Dae-young pulled out his phone and showed Minjun a photo. "They've hired new people. Dangerous people." The photo showed 3 men standing outside the clinic. They looked like businessmen in their suits and ties. But Minjun had been in the crime world long enough to recognize killers when he saw them. Something about the eyes. The way they stood. The way their jackets hung. Heavy on one side where guns were hidden. "How long have they been watching?" Minjun asked quietly. 2 weeks that we know of. Maybe longer." Minjun stood up and walked to the window. Below, he could see the clinic. The lights were still on. Grace was inside, finishing up with the last patients of the day. His mother was probably making her special ginger tea for the cleaning staff. "Double the guards," Minjun said. "I want 2 men inside the clinic at all times. For outside. Nobody gets close to Grace or my mother without going through us first. Boss, if Hendrix Biomed is really planning something, extra guards might not be enough. These guys play a different game. They have lawyers, politicians, judges. They can make people disappear legally." Minjun turned from the window. "Then we'll play their game better than they do. Find out everything about Hendrix Biomed. Who owns it? Who runs it? Where their money comes from. Every dirty secret they've got. If they want a war, we'll give them a war." But Minjun didn't tell Grace about any of this. He didn't want to scare her. She was finally happy, finally doing what her grandmother had taught her to do. Every day, she saved lives with plants and roots and ancient knowledge that most doctors had forgotten. Grace had also started teaching classes twice a week. Other nurses came to learn. Some doctors came too, curious about these old remedies that actually worked. Grace wrote everything down in a big leather journal. Every recipe, every method, every secret her grandmother Ruth had taught her. "Knowledge should be free," Grace always said. "My grandmother believed that. If we hide what we know, people suffer. If we share it, everyone benefits." One evening after the clinic closed, Grace was organizing herbs in the back room when Minjun came in. "You're still here?" he asked. "It's almost 9 o'clock. Grace smiled without looking up. "Mrs. Chun is coming tomorrow morning. She has diabetes and high blood pressure. I'm preparing a special tea mixture for her. Burdock root for the blood sugar, hawthorn berry for the blood pressure, and a little ginger for circulation." Minjun watched her work. Her hands moved with confidence, measuring and mixing like a chef making a perfect dish. "You love this, don't you? Helping people. It's all I've ever wanted to do." Grace looked up at him. "When I was little and watched my grandmother heal people, I felt like I was watching magic. But it wasn't magic. It was knowledge. It was caring. It was taking the time to really see people and understand what they needed. Your grandmother sounds like she was an amazing woman. She was. She died when I was 17. Cancer. Ironic, isn't it? She could heal so many people, but she couldn't heal herself. Grace's voice got quiet. Before she died, she made me promise to pass on what she taught me. She said, "Baby, this knowledge is older than America. It came from Africa with our ancestors. It survived slavery. It survived Jim Crow. It survived everything they tried to do to erase us. Don't let it die with me." Grace wiped her eyes. That's why this clinic means so much to me. It's not just a building. It's my grandmother's legacy. It's proof that our knowledge matters. That we matter. Minjun felt something twist in his chest. Here was Grace, crying over her grandmother's memory while carefully preparing medicine for a patient she'd never met before tomorrow. And somewhere out there, evil men in expensive suits were planning to destroy everything she'd built. Not if I can stop them, Minjun thought. Not if I have to burn their whole company to the ground. But what Minjun didn't know was that Hendrix Biomed wasn't planning to destroy the clinic. They had something much worse in mind. 2 days later, Grace got a visitor at the clinic. His name was Dr. Richard Morrison, and he looked exactly like what he was, a rich, powerful man who was used to getting whatever he wanted. Dr. Morrison wore a suit that probably cost more than Grace made in 3 months. His shoes were shiny. His hair was perfect. His smile showed teeth so white they almost glowed. "Nurse Waters," he said, offering his hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you. I've heard amazing things about your work here." Grace shook his hand cautiously. Something about this man made her uncomfortable. "Thank you. Can I help you with something?" "Actually, I'm here to help you." Dr. Morrison pulled out a business card. "I'm the Chief Research Officer at Hendrix Biomed. We're a pharmaceutical company that specializes in developing treatments based on traditional medicine." Grace's blood turned cold. She recognized that name. Hendrix Biomed. The company that had kidnapped Sung-hee. The company that had threatened her. She tried to keep her face calm. "I'm familiar with your company." "I'm sure you are." Dr. Morrison's smile didn't change. "And I want to apologize for that unfortunate incident several months ago. The individuals responsible have been removed from their positions. That kind of behavior does not represent who we are as a company." "Really?" "Because kidnapping an old woman seemed pretty representative to me." Dr. Morrison had the decency to look embarrassed. "You're absolutely right to be angry. What they did was criminal and wrong. But Ms. Waters, I'm here to offer you something much better than threats and violence." He pulled out a folder and laid it on Grace's desk. Inside were papers with lots of numbers and legal words. "This is a contract," Dr. Morrison explained. "We want to partner with you. You would become our Director of Traditional Medicine Research. Salary, $300,000 per year. Full benefits. A research budget of $5 million. You'd have a staff of 20 researchers helping you study and develop your grandmother's remedies." Grace stared at the numbers. $300,000? She currently makes $42,000 a year at the clinic. This was more money than she'd ever imagined having. "We'd also fund this clinic," Dr. Morrison continued. $5 million for expansion and operations. You could help 10 times as many people. 100 times as many people. Your grandmother's remedies could reach the whole world. "And what do you get out of this?" Grace asked quietly. "We'd patent the remedies. Develop them into safe, standardized medications. And yes, we'd sell them and make a profit. But isn't that better than keeping the knowledge locked away? Right now, you can help maybe 100 people a week. With our resources, you could help 100,000 people. 1,000,000 people." Grace's mind spun. It did sound good. Really good. She could expand the clinic. Hire more nurses. Help more people. Buy her mother a house. Pay off her student loans. Never worry about money again. But something felt wrong. "I need to think about it," Grace said. Dr. Morrison's smile got bigger. "Of course. Take your time. But Ms. Waters, opportunities like this don't come around often. I'd hate for you to regret saying no." After he left, Grace sat in her office for a long time, staring at the contract. $300,000. $5 million for the clinic. Her grandmother's remedies reached the whole world. It sounded like a dream come true. So why did it feel like a nightmare? That evening, Grace told Minjun and Sung-hee about the offer. They were all having dinner together at Minjun's penthouse, something they did twice a week now. Sung-hee made Korean food, Grace brought dessert, and Minjun pretended he wasn't slowly becoming part of a real family. When Grace finished explaining the contract, Minjun's face went dark. "No," he said flatly. "Absolutely not. But Min-jun, think about how many people we could help. It's a trap, Grace. Can't you see that? They tried to steal your grandmother's remedies by force. That didn't work. So now they're trying to buy them. It's the same thing, just dressed up prettier. Maybe they really have changed. Maybe. People like that don't change. Min-jun stood up, pacing. I know people like this. I used to be like this. They see something valuable, they take it. They don't care who gets hurt. They wrap it up in nice words and big smiles, but underneath, they're the same thugs who kidnapped my mother. Sung-hee put her hand on Min-jun's arm. Sit down, my son. Getting angry doesn't help Grace make a good decision. Min-jun sat, but his jaw stayed clenched. Sung-hee turned to Grace. Tell me, dear, when you look at this offer, what does your heart say? Grace thought about it. My heart says it sounds too good to be true. My heart says my grandmother wouldn't trust these people. But my brain says... She paused. My brain says maybe I'm being stupid. Maybe I'm letting one bad experience make me miss a great opportunity. Your heart is wise, Sung-hee said gently. When something sounds too good to be true, it usually is. These pharmaceutical people, they don't want to help. They want to own. There's a difference. But what if we negotiate? What if we make sure the contract protects the clinic and keeps the remedies affordable? Min-jun shook his head. Grace, once you sign a contract with people like this, they own you. They'll have lawyers and clauses in fine print. They'll promise one thing and deliver another. And by the time you realize you've been tricked, it'll be too late. Grace felt tears burning in her eyes. I just want to help people, Min-jun. That's all I've ever wanted. And this offer would let me help so many more people. How can that be wrong? It's not wrong to want to help people, Sung-hee said softly. But ask yourself, who would really be helped by this deal? The patients? Or the pharmaceutical company's bank account? Grace went home that night with the contract still in her bag. She lay in bed, unable to sleep, thinking about her grandmother Ruth. What would Grandma do? Grace wondered. But she already knew the answer. Her grandmother had never trusted big companies or rich people who made promises. Baby, she used to say, when someone offers you something for nothing, look real careful at what they're really asking for. What was Hendrix Biomed really asking for? Grace sat up in bed and turned on the light. She pulled out the contract and started reading it carefully. Really carefully. All the way through. And there, on page 17, in small print that was easy to miss, she found it. All traditional knowledge, remedies, formulas, and methods disclosed by the director shall become the exclusive intellectual property of Hendrix Biomed Holdings Incorporated. The director agrees not to practice, teach, or share said knowledge outside of official company activities. Grace read it again. Then again. They wanted to own her grandmother's remedies. All of them. And once they owned them, Grace wouldn't be able to teach them to anyone. She wouldn't even be able to use them at the clinic without the company's permission. They wanted to lock away her grandmother's legacy behind patents and lawyers and corporate greed. Grace's hands started shaking, but not from fear this time. From anger. No, she whispered to herself in the dark. No, no, no. That's not what Grandma wanted. That's not what this knowledge is for. The next morning, Grace called Dr. Morrison. I've reviewed your offer, she said, keeping her voice professional. And I'm going to have to decline. There was a pause on the other end of the line. When Dr. Morrison spoke again, his voice had changed. The friendly warmth was gone. Now he sounded cold. That's disappointing, Ms. Waters. Are you sure? We're prepared to increase the salary offer to $400,000. I'm sure. $500,000. No. Another pause. Ms. Waters, I hope you understand that we're trying to be fair here. We're offering you more money than most people see in a lifetime. But with or without you, we will acquire these remedies. It would be much better for everyone if you cooperated. Grace's heart started pounding. Is that a threat? It's a reality. Your grandmother's knowledge isn't really yours, legally speaking. If we can prove that similar remedies exist in published literature or historical records, we can patent them ourselves. You'd end up with nothing, and we'd end up with everything. Wouldn't it be smarter to take our generous offer? Get away from my clinic, Grace said. And don't come back. She hung up. For a moment, Grace just sat there, breathing hard. Then she called Min-jun. They threatened me, she said when he answered. They said they'll take the remedies with or without my permission. Where are you right now? At the clinic. I'm about to open for the day. Lock the doors. Don't let anyone in. I'm coming. Min-jun, I have patience. Lock the doors. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Grace did what he said. She locked the front door and put up a sign, closed for emergency. We'll reopen at noon. Then she went to find Sung-hee, who was in the back room preparing tea. Something's wrong, Grace said. Min-jun is coming. He sounded scared. Sung-hee's face went serious. Scared is when Min-jun is most dangerous. Come, let's wait for him together. They sat in Grace's office, holding hands, listening to the clock tick. Grace tried not to imagine what might happen. Would Hendrix Biomed really try to steal the remedies? Could they do that legally? What if? The front door exploded inward. Grace and Sung-hee both screamed. Through the broken door, a tall man in a black suit stepped inside. He was holding a gun. Where is she? The man shouted. Where is Grace Waters? Grace and Sung-hee stayed frozen in the office. Through the window, Grace could see the man stalking through the clinic, knocking over chairs, sweeping things off counters. I know you're here, the man yelled. Dr. Morrison sent me. He said if you won't cooperate, we'll do this the hard way. Grace's phone was on the desk. She grabbed it and dialed 911, but her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold it. Outside, tires squealed. Car doors slammed. And then Grace heard Min-jun's voice, cold and deadly. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Grace ran to the window. Min-jun was there with 4 of his men. They'd surrounded the man with a gun. The man tried to aim at Min-jun, but one of Min-jun's guys tackled him. The gun went flying. Within seconds, the man was face down on the floor, Min-jun's knee on his back. Who sent you? Min-jun demanded. Hendrix Biomed, the man gasped. They paid me $10,000 to scare the nurse. Just scare her. Don't hurt her. Scare her. Min-jun pressed his knee down harder. By breaking into her clinic with a gun. Please, man, I was just doing a job. Police sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Min-jun's men looked nervous. Boss, we gotta go, Dae-young said. Cops are coming. But Min-jun didn't move. He leaned down close to the man's ear and whispered something Grace couldn't hear. Whatever he said made the man's eyes go wide with terror. Then Min-jun stood up. Call an ambulance for this piece of trash. And someone boarded up that door. Min-jun walked into the clinic. He found Grace and his mother in the office, both crying, holding each other. When they saw him, Grace ran to him and wrapped her arms around him. Thank you, she sobbed. Thank you, thank you. Min-jun held her tight. Over her shoulder, he saw his mother watching him with proud eyes. It's okay, Min-jun said softly. I've got you. They're not going to hurt you. But even as he said it, Min-jun knew the truth. This wasn't over. This was just the beginning. Hendrix Biomed had declared war, and Min-jun Kim was going to finish it. One way or another, he was going to protect Grace and his mother and the clinic. Even if he had to become the monster he'd been trying to stop being. Even if it cost him everything he'd built. Even if it meant going back to the darkness he'd finally escaped. Because some things were worth fighting for. Some people were worth protecting. And Grace Waters and her grandmother's legacy were worth whatever price Min-jun had to pay. The police arrived 5 minutes later. The man with the gun was arrested. They wanted to question Min-jun, but he had lawyers, good lawyers who knew exactly what to say to make problems disappear. My client was defending his property and his employees, the lawyer said smoothly. The security cameras will show he used minimal force and called the police immediately. The police weren't happy, but they couldn't do much. The man with the gun confessed everything. How Hendrix Biomed had hired him, what they'd paid him, what they'd told him to do. After the police left, Min-jun sat down with Grace and his mother in the clinic's break room. The front door was boarded up with plywood. The whole place felt violated, dirty. We need to talk, Min-jun said seriously. Hendrix Biomed isn't going to stop. Today they sent 1 guy with a gun. Tomorrow they might send 10 guys. Or they might do something worse, something legal that we can't fight. What do you mean? Grace asked. They could file lawsuits claiming you're practicing medicine without proper licenses. They could report you to the medical board for using unapproved treatments. They could bribe health inspectors to shut down the clinic. They have 100 ways to destroy you that don't involve guns. So what do we do? Sung-hee asked. Min-jun looked at both of them. We fight back, but not with guns or violence. We fight them with their own weapons, lawyers, media, politicians. We expose what they tried to do. We make them so toxic that no one will want to work with them. Grace shook her head. Min-jun, that sounds like it will take months. Maybe years. We can't run the clinic with armed guards at the door. People won't come if they're scared. Then we do something else. Min-jun pulled out his phone and made a call. Dae-young, I need you to find me the best investigative journalist in Los Angeles. Someone who isn't afraid of big pharmaceutical companies. Someone who loves exposing corporate corruption. He listened for a moment, then nodded. Good. Set up a meeting for tomorrow morning. Tell them I've got a story that will win them a Pulitzer Prize. After he hung up, Grace asked, What are you planning? I'm planning to burn Hendrix Biomed to the ground, Minjun said calmly. Not literally. But by the time I'm done with them, everyone in America will know what kind of company they really are. They wanted to play dirty? I'll show them what dirty really looks like. Sung-hee looked worried. My son, be careful. Revenge has a way of poisoning the person seeking it. This isn't revenge, Yama. This is protection. If we don't stop them now, they'll never stop coming after Grace. That night, Grace couldn't sleep. She kept seeing that man with the gun, kept hearing him shout, kept feeling the terror of thinking she might die right there in her own clinic. But mixed with the fear was something else, anger. How dare they? How dare Hendrix Biomed think they could just take what her grandmother had spent a lifetime learning? How dare they threaten her? How dare they ruin the one place where she could honor her grandmother's memory? Grace got out of bed and went to her desk. She pulled out her grandmother's journal, the one where she'd written down all the remedies. She opened it and read her grandmother's words written on the very first page. This knowledge is not mine. It was given to me by my mother, who received it from her mother, going back generations. I am just a keeper of it, a guardian for a little while. My job is to protect it, to use it wisely, and to pass it on to someone who will do the same. Knowledge wants to be free. Knowledge wants to heal. Don't let anyone cage it. Don't let anyone own it. Let it fly. Grace closed the journal and made a decision. Tomorrow, she would do something her grandmother would have done. Something brave and maybe a little crazy. But first, she had to survive whatever Hendrix Biomed was planning next. Because in his expensive office downtown, Dr. Richard Morrison was making plans too. And his plans didn't just involve scaring Grace or stealing her remedies. His plans involved making sure that Grace Waters and the Ruth Waters Healing Center disappeared completely, one way or another. The reporter's name was Sarah Chun, and she didn't scare easily. She sat across from Minjun in a quiet coffee shop, her recorder on the table between them, her eyes sharp and intelligent. She was maybe 40 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and the kind of tired look that came from spending too many late nights chasing stories that powerful people didn't want told. Mr. Kim, she said carefully, I know who you are. I know what you do or what you used to do. So before we go any further, I need to ask, why should I trust anything you tell me? Minjun respected that. She wasn't a fool. You shouldn't trust me, he said honestly. You should trust the evidence I'm going to give you. Documents, recordings, witnesses, everything you need to prove that Hendrix Biomed is a criminal organization hiding behind a corporate logo. Sarah leaned forward. I'm listening. For the next hour, Minjun told her everything. About his mother's illness. About Grace's grandmother's remedies. About the kidnapping. About the threats. About the man with the gun who'd broken into the clinic yesterday. Sarah's pen moved fast across her notepad. When Minjun finished, she sat back and let out a long breath. This is big, she said quietly. Bigger than I expected. But Mr. Kim, Hendrix Biomed has lawyers. Lots of lawyers. If I publish this story and get even one fact wrong, they'll sue me and my newspaper into oblivion. I need ironclad proof for every single claim. You'll have it. Minjun slid a USB drive across the table. That drive contains security camera footage from the clinic showing the break-in. Phone records showing calls between Dr. Morrison and the man with the gun. Bank records showing the $10,000 payment. And sworn statements from 3 people who used to work for Hendrix Biomed and are willing to testify about their illegal activities. Sarah picked up the USB drive and looked at it like it was made of gold. How did you get all this? I have friends in useful places. You mean you have criminals who know how to hack and steal information? Minjun smiled slightly. I prefer to think of them as information specialists. Sarah shook her head, but she was smiling too. If even half of what's on this drive is true, Hendrix Biomed is finished. I'll need a few days to verify everything, interview witnesses, and write the story. Can you keep Grace Waters safe until then? She's staying at my penthouse with 24-hour security. No one's getting near her. Good. Sarah stood up and extended her hand. Mr. Kim, I don't know if you're trying to redeem yourself or just protect someone you care about. Maybe both. But either way, thank you for bringing this to me. Stories like this are why I became a journalist. After Sarah left, Minjun sat in the coffee shop for a while, drinking tea and thinking. He'd just given a reporter enough information to destroy a multimillion-dollar company. The old Min Jun, the crime boss who solved every problem with fear and violence, would never have done something like this. But maybe that was the point. Maybe he really was changing. His phone buzzed. It was Dae-young. "Boss, we've got a problem." Min Jun's chest tightened. "What kind of problem?" "It's the clinic. Someone tried to burn it down last night." Min Jun was out of his chair and running for his car before Dae-young finished talking. When he reached the clinic 15 minutes later, fire trucks were still there, spraying water on the smoking building. The front wall was black with soot. The windows were shattered. The smell of burned wood and chemicals filled the air. Grace was standing on the sidewalk, tears streaming down her face, staring at the ruins of everything she'd built. Min Jun ran to her. "Are you okay? Were you inside?" Grace shook her head. "I stayed at your place like you said." "But Min Jun." Her voice broke. "The clinic. My grandmother's remedies. The herb storage room is completely destroyed. Everything is gone. 6 months of work just gone." Sung-hee appeared, wrapping her arms around Grace. "We can rebuild, dear. Buildings can be replaced. But the herbs can't," Grace cried. "Some of those plants take years to grow. And the journal, my grandmother's journal where I wrote everything down, was in my office. If it burned." Min Jun turned to Dae-young. "Tell me you got security footage." Dae-young's face was grim. The cameras were disabled 30 minutes before the fire started. "Professional job. These weren't random arsonists, boss. This was planned." A fire investigator approached them, his face serious. "Are you the owners?" "I am," Grace said. "Ma'am, this was definitely arson. We found evidence of accelerants, gasoline probably. Whoever did this poured it all through the back of the building and lit it up. They wanted to make sure everything burned." Grace made a sound like a wounded animal. Min Jun caught her as her knees buckled. "I've got you," he whispered. "I've got you." But inside, Min Jun was burning with a rage he hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just an attack on a building. This was an attack on everything Grace believed in, everything she'd worked for, everything her grandmother had taught her. Hendrix Biomed had just declared total war, and Min Jun Kim was about to show them what war really looked like. That afternoon, Min Jun called an emergency meeting with his most trusted men. Not the young street soldiers or the low-level enforcers. He called the serious ones, the men who'd been with him for 10 years or more, who understood that some problems required more than just muscle. There were 8 of them sitting around the table in Min Jun's private office. Dae-young, Lee, Park, Kim Sung-ho, Chun. 3 others whose names didn't matter as much as their skills. "Hendrix Biomed has crossed a line," Min Jun said, his voice cold and controlled. "They didn't just threaten us. They tried to kill what someone I care about has spent her life building. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to take everything from them. Their money, their reputation, their freedom, everything." "Boss," Lee said carefully, "these aren't street thugs we're dealing with. These are billionaires with connections to senators and judges. If we come at them wrong, they'll crush us. Then we don't come at them wrong." Min Jun pulled out a folder thick with papers. "I've had people researching Hendrix Biomed for the past 3 days. Here's what we know. The company is owned by a hedge fund called Castellan Capital. Castellan is run by a man named Victor Castellan. Old money, East Coast elite, the kind of guy who thinks he's untouchable." He spread photos across the table. "Castellan has 3 weaknesses. 1, he's having an affair with his secretary, and his wife doesn't know. 2, he's been embezzling money from his investors to pay for a yacht and a private island. 3, he's been bribing FDA officials to fast-track drug approvals." The men around the table leaned forward, interested now. "Here's the plan," Min Jun continued. "We leak the affair to his wife through an anonymous tip. We send the embezzlement evidence to the SEC and the FBI. We give the bribery information to Sarah Chen at the Times so she can blow it up in the media. We hit him from every direction at once. By the time we're done, Victor Castellan will be too busy fighting for his own survival to worry about Grace Waters or her clinic." Park nodded slowly. "That could work. But boss, even if we take down Castellan, Hendrix Biomed is just one company. There are dozens of pharmaceutical companies out there who'd want Grace's remedies. Taking down one won't stop the others." Min Jun had thought about that. "You're right. Which is why we're also going to make sure that Grace's remedies become public domain. If everyone has access to them, no one can monopolize them. We'll put every single remedy online, free for anyone to see and use. The knowledge becomes worthless to corporations because they can't patent what's already public." Dae-young frowned. "Will Grace agree to that? Those remedies are her grandmother's legacy. Her grandmother's legacy was healing people, Minjun said. Not making money or keeping secrets. If we make the remedies public, we honor that legacy and protect Grace at the same time. It's brilliant, boss, Chen said. But it'll take time to document everything, film tutorials, build a website. Maybe a month. We have 3 days, Minjun said. Sarah Chen's article drops in 3 days. We need everything in place by then so that when the world learns about Hendrix Biomed's crimes, they also learn about the traditional remedies that these criminals tried to steal. We turn Grace into a hero and Hendrix into villains. Lee grinned. I like it. What do you need from us? Everything. Lee, you handle the SEC and FBI leaks. Park, you get that affair information to Castellan's wife. Make it look like it came from the secretary herself, someone scorned and angry. Chun, work with our tech people to build the website. Dae-young, you're with me. We're going to talk to Grace. The meeting broke up, everyone moving fast. Minjun and Dae-young drove to the penthouse where Grace and Sung-hee were staying. They found Grace sitting on the balcony, staring out at the Los Angeles skyline. She looked hollow, like someone had scooped out her insides and left only a shell. Grace, Minjun said softly, sitting down beside her. I need to talk to you about something important. If it's about rebuilding the clinic, I don't want to talk about it right now. It's not about that. It's about your grandmother's remedies. Grace finally looked at him. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. What about them? I want to put them online. All of them. Free for anyone in the world to access. Video tutorials showing how to prepare them. Written instructions. Everything. Grace's mouth fell open. You want to just give them away? Yes. But those remedies are all I have left of my grandmother. They're special. They're sacred. Minjun took her hand. Grace, listen to me. Your grandmother didn't teach you those remedies so you could keep them locked away. She taught you so you could help people. Right now, Hendrix Biomed is trying to steal them and make millions of dollars. Other companies will try the same thing. But if we make the remedies public, if everyone has access to them, then no corporation can own them. They become like air, like water, something that belongs to everyone. Tears started rolling down Grace's face again. My grandmother used to say that healing knowledge should flow like a river, not sit still like a pond. She said stagnant water goes bad, but flowing water stays clean and gives life. Then let's make it flow, Minjun said gently. Let's turn your grandmother's wisdom into a river that reaches the whole world. That's how we protect it. That's how we honor her memory. Grace was quiet for a long time, thinking. Finally, she nodded. Okay, let's do it. But I want to be involved. I want to film the tutorials myself. I want to explain not just how to make the remedies, but why they work and what my grandmother believed about healing. Deal. Over the next 72 hours, Grace barely slept. She filmed 37 video tutorials in Minjun's penthouse, showing how to identify plants, how to prepare them, and how to combine them for different conditions. She talked about her grandmother Ruth, about the history of root medicine in Black communities, about how this knowledge had survived slavery and oppression. Minjun's tech people built a beautiful website called Ruth's Garden, with all the videos and written instructions. They made it simple and easy to use, available in 12 languages. Anyone in the world with internet access could learn these remedies for free. Meanwhile, Minjun's other men were busy destroying Victor Castellan's life. On the first day, Castellan's wife received an anonymous envelope with photos of her husband and his secretary on the yacht he'd bought with embezzled money. She filed for divorce that afternoon and called her lawyer. On the second day, the SEC received a detailed report about Castellan's embezzlement, complete with bank records and offshore account information. They opened an investigation within hours. On the third day, Sarah Chen's article hit the front page of the Los Angeles Times. The headline read, Pharmaceutical giant hired gunman Teo threatened nurse over traditional remedies. The article was devastating. Sarah had done her homework. She'd interviewed the gunman, who admitted everything on record. She'd gotten statements from former Hendrix Biomed employees about the company's pattern of stealing traditional knowledge from indigenous communities and poor neighborhoods. She'd documented the kidnapping of Sung-hee Kim 6 months earlier. And she'd included the most damaging detail of all. Internal Hendrix Biomed emails showing that executives knew their hired thug might use force if necessary, and didn't care as long as they got Grace's remedies. The story went viral within an hour. By lunch, it was trending on every social media platform. By evening, CNN and MSNBC were running special segments. By midnight, the FBI had announced a criminal investigation into Hendrix Biomed. Sarah Chen called Minjun that night. I don't know what you did behind the scenes, she said, but Hendrix Biomed is imploding. Their stock price crashed. Half their board resigned. Victor Castellan is facing federal charges. It's beautiful. You did that, Minjun said. Your article did that. All I did was give you the truth. Well, thank you for the truth. And thank Grace for her courage in speaking to me. She's become a hero, you know. People are calling her the guardian of traditional medicine. There's already a petition to give her some kind of humanitarian award. After hanging up, Minjun walked out to the balcony where Grace was sitting with his mother. They were looking at Grace's phone, reading comments on the Ruth's Garden website. Listen to this one, Grace said, her voice filled with wonder. It's from a woman in Kenya. She says, my grandmother knew some of these remedies but died before teaching me. Thank you for saving this knowledge. And this one from Brazil. I made the blood-building tea for my father who has anemia. After 1 week, his energy is better. Sung Hee smiled. Your grandmother is smiling in heaven, Grace. I'm sure of it. Grace looked up at Minjun with tears in her eyes. But this time they were happy tears. We did it. We actually did it. My grandmother's knowledge is out there now, flowing like a river, helping people all over the world. Minjun sat down beside them. Now we are rebuilding the clinic. Bigger. Better. And this time, no one will dare try to destroy it. But Minjun was wrong. Because at that exact moment, in a luxury apartment across town, someone was watching the news coverage and getting very, very angry. His name was Marcus Webb. The same Marcus Webb who'd kidnapped Sung Hee 6 months ago. The same man whose fingers Minjun had broken. He'd been lying low, recovering, planning. And now he was ready for revenge. Marcus picked up his phone and made a call. It's me. Yeah, I know what happened to Hendrix. I don't care about them anymore. This is personal now. That Korean gangster humiliated me. I broke my hand. Made me look weak. He paused, listening. I want him to suffer the way I suffered. I want him to lose everything he cares about. And I know exactly how to do it. Marcus smiled. A cold, cruel smile that would have terrified anyone who saw it. We're going after the nurse and the old woman. Not to kidnap them this time. This time, we're going to make them disappear permanently. And when Kim realizes what he's lost, when he's drowning in grief, that's when I'll make my move. That's when I'll take everything from him. On the other end of the line, someone agreed to help. Marcus Webb hung up and started planning. He didn't know that Minjun Kim had cameras everywhere, informants in every corner of LA's underworld. He didn't know that one of the men he'd just called was secretly on Minjun's payroll. And he definitely didn't know that by threatening Grace and Sung Hee, he'd just signed his own death warrant. Because Minjun Kim had changed. He'd learned to be patient, to think before acting, to use his brain instead of his fists. But if someone threatened his family, and Grace and his mother were his family now, all that civilized behavior would disappear. The monster would come back. And this time, the monster wouldn't stop until Marcus Webb wished he'd never been born. The next morning, Grace woke up feeling something she hadn't felt in days. Hope. The Ruth's Garden website had been visited by over 2 million people in just 24 hours. People were sharing the videos, trying the remedies, posting thank you messages. The clinic was destroyed, but the knowledge was alive and spreading. Grace was making breakfast when Minjun's phone rang. He answered, listened for a moment, then his face went hard as stone. When? He asked quietly. Where? I understand. Don't move. I'm sending people to you now. He hung up and looked at Grace and his mother. We have a problem. That was one of my informants. Marcus Webb, the man who kidnapped you, Yama, is planning another attack. This time he wants to kill both of you. Sung Hee gasped. Grace felt her blood turn cold. When? She whispered. He's still planning. Maybe a few days. Maybe a week. But he's serious, and he's hired professional killers to help him. Grace's hands started shaking. Just when she thought it was over, just when she thought they were safe. What do we do? Sung Hee asked. Minjun's eyes were cold and dark. We end this. Permanently. Minjun, no, his mother said urgently. Don't go back to being that person. Don't let violence solve this. Yama, these men want to murder you and Grace. What am I supposed to do? Ask them politely to stop. Call the police. Give them the information. Let the law handle it. The law is too slow. Minjun's voice rose. By the time the police investigate and make arrests, you could both be dead. I won't let that happen. I can't. Grace stood up and walked to Minjun. She put her hands on either side of his face, making him look at her. Your mother is right. If you kill Marcus Webb, you'll go to prison. And then what? Who will protect us then? who will help rebuild the clinic, who will be the good man you've been trying to become. Grace, listen to me, Grace said firmly. My grandmother always said there's a better way than violence. She said, baby, when someone tries to drag you down into the mud, don't roll around fighting them. Stand up, brush yourself off, and walk away. They'll be stuck in the mud alone. Minjun closed his eyes. I don't know how to walk away when people I love are in danger. Then learn, Sung-hee said softly. For us, learn to trust that there's another way. For a long moment, Minjun stood there, torn between the man he used to be and the man he was trying to become. Finally, he opened his eyes. Okay, we'll try it your way first. But if the law fails, if the police can't protect you. He paused. Then I do things my way. Agreed. Grace and Sung-hee nodded. Minjun picked up his phone and called Sarah Chin. I've got another story for you. And this one might save 2 lives. The FBI agent's name was Diana Foster, and she didn't like Minjun Kim one bit. She sat across from him in an interrogation room at the federal building downtown, her arms crossed, her face showing exactly what she thought of gangsters who pretended to be good citizens. Let me get this straight, Agent Foster said, her voice dripping with skepticism. You, a known crime boss with connections to drug trafficking, illegal gambling, and at least 4 unsolved murders. Want me to believe you're suddenly a concerned citizen reporting a threat? Minjun kept his face calm. I'm reporting that Marcus Webb, a former employee of Hendrix Biomed, has hired assassins to murder 2 innocent women. I have recordings of him planning the attack. I have the names of the men he hired. I have dates, locations, and methods. What I am, or what I used to be, doesn't change the fact that people are in danger. Agent Foster stared at him for a long moment. Then she pressed a button on a recorder. Play the evidence. Minjun pulled out his phone and played 3 audio recordings. In them, Marcus Webb's voice was clear, discussing plans to eliminate the nurse and the old Korean woman, and make it look like an accident, maybe a gas leak or a car crash. When the recordings finished, Agent Foster's expression had changed. She wasn't looking at Minjun with disgust anymore. Now she looked interested. Where did you get these recordings? She asked. Does it matter? If you obtained them illegally, I can't use them in court. Minjun smiled slightly. One of the men Marcus contacted is my associate. He was wearing a wire because he wanted insurance in case the plan went wrong. Everything was recorded with the consent of at least one party to the conversation. That's legal in California. Agent Foster nodded slowly. And you're willing to have your associate testify? He'll testify to whatever you need. He wants immunity, of course. Of course. Agent Foster stood up and paced the small room. Mr. Kim, I'm going to be honest with you. We've been investigating Hendrix Biomed for 6 months, ever since that article in the Times. We know Marcus Webb is involved, but we haven't been able to build a case strong enough to arrest him. If what you're giving me is real, it's real, then you might have just handed me the case I need. She stopped pacing and looked at him. But I need your associate to wear a wire again. Get Webb talking about the murders he's planning in detail, names, dates, methods. Get him to incriminate himself completely. Can you do that? Yes. And the 2 women he's targeting, Grace Waters and Sung-hee Kim. They need to be put in protective custody immediately. Minjun shook his head. They won't go. My mother is stubborn, and Grace won't leave her patients. Mr. Kim, if Marcus Webb really has hired professional killers, your mother and Ms. Waters are in extreme danger. I can't protect them if they won't cooperate. Then protect them where they are. Put agents at the clinic. Put agents at my penthouse. Put agents wherever they go. But don't ask them to hide. Agent Foster sighed. You're making my job very difficult. I'm making your job possible, Minjun corrected. Without me, you wouldn't even know about this threat. So work with me, Agent Foster. Protect the people who need protecting, and I'll give you everything you need to put Marcus Webb in prison for the rest of his life. After a long pause, Agent Foster nodded. Okay, but Mr. Kim, if this is some kind of trick, if you're using the FBI to eliminate a rival or settle a personal score, this isn't a trick. This is about keeping good people alive. Agent Foster studied his face, looking for lies. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her, because she extended her hand. All right, we have a deal. I'll have a team ready within 3 hours. Minjun shook her hand and left the federal building. Outside, Dae-young was waiting in the car. How'd it go, boss? Better than expected. The FBI is taking the threat seriously. They'll provide protection while we set up the trap for Webb. And what about after? After Webb is arrested? Minjun looked out the window at the city passing by. After? I don't know, Dae-young. I've been thinking about getting out. Really out. Selling off the businesses, going legitimate completely. Dae-young nearly drove off the road. Boss, you can't be serious. The organization. The organization will survive without me. You could run it. Or we could dismantle it piece by piece, turn everything legal. I'm tired, Dae-young. Tired of looking over my shoulder. Tired of violence. Tired of being afraid that the things I do will come back to hurt the people I love. Your mother and Grace have changed you. Yes, they have. And maybe that's not a bad thing. When they arrived at the penthouse, Grace and Sung-hee were waiting anxiously. Min-jun explained everything. The FBI's involvement, the protection detail, the plan to trap Marcus Webb with another recording. So we just wait, Grace asked. Wait for this man to get close enough to record him confessing. The FBI will control everything. You'll be safe. But Grace didn't look convinced. Neither did Sung-hee. That night, Grace couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Marcus Webb out there somewhere, planning to kill her. Planning to kill Sung-hee. It felt unreal, like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. Around 2 a.m., she gave up on sleep and went to the kitchen to make tea. She found Sung-hee already there, boiling water. Can't sleep either? Grace asked. Too many thoughts, Sung-hee said. Sit, dear. I'll make us both some chamomile. They sat at the kitchen table, drinking tea in the quiet darkness. Outside the window, Los Angeles glowed with a million lights. I'm sorry, Grace said suddenly. Sung-hee looked at her, surprised. Sorry for what? For bringing danger into your life. If I hadn't saved you with my grandmother's remedies, none of this would have happened. You wouldn't have been kidnapped. The clinic wouldn't have been burned. Marcus Webb wouldn't be trying to kill us. Grace. Sung-hee reached across and took her hand. Do you know what I would be if you hadn't saved me? Dead. I would be 6 months dead and buried. Every day I've lived since then, every morning I wake up, every meal I taste, every laugh I share with my son. Those are gifts you gave me. If danger comes with those gifts, so be it. I would rather live in danger than die in safety. Tears filled Grace's eyes. But what if something happens to you? What if Webb succeeds? Then I will have died living, not dying. There's a difference. Sung-hee squeezed her hand. My dear Grace, you cannot control everything. You cannot protect everyone. All you can do is live with courage and trust that the universe has a plan. I don't know if I believe in the universe's plan anymore, Grace whispered. Then believe in people's plans. Believe in Min-jun, who is doing everything he can to protect us. Believe in the FBI, who will catch Marcus Webb. Believe in yourself, in your strength, your intelligence, your grandmother's wisdom living inside you. Grace wiped her eyes. How are you so calm? Sung-hee smiled. I'm not calm. I'm terrified. But I've learned that being terrified and being brave aren't opposites. Sometimes you have to be both at the same time. The next day, the FBI set up their operation. 2 agents moved into the penthouse, disguised as Min-jun's housekeepers, to protect Sung-hee. 4 more agents watched the building from unmarked cars. Agent Foster herself coordinated everything from a command center set up in an FBI van 2 blocks away. Grace insisted on being there for the operation. I need to know the moment it's over, she told Min-jun. I can't just sit at home waiting. So she came with him to the FBI van, while Sung-hee remained at the penthouse under protection. Min-jun's associate, a man named Tommy Park who'd worked with Marcus Webb before, agreed to wear a wire and meet with Webb to discuss final plans for the job. The meeting was set for 7 p.m. at a bar in Venice Beach. Tommy would wear a recording device hidden in his belt buckle. FBI agents would be positioned throughout the bar, ready to move in if things went wrong. At 6:45 p.m., Min-jun and Grace sat in the FBI command van with Agent Foster, listening through headphones as Tommy arrived at the bar. Remember, Agent Foster said into her microphone, speaking to Tommy through a hidden earpiece. Get him to say the target's names. Get him to describe the method. Get him to confirm he's paying for murder for hire. We need everything on tape. Copy that. Tommy's voice crackled back. At 7:02 p.m., Marcus Webb arrived. Through the audio feed, they heard him order a whiskey and sit down with Tommy. You're late, Webb said. Traffic. You know how it is. Whatever. Did you bring the floor plans I asked for? Yeah, right here. Sounds of papers rustling. That's Min-jun Kim's penthouse building. 24th floor. 2 elevators, 1 stairwell. Security is tight, but there's a service entrance the maintenance staff uses. It's only locked from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Good. Webb's voice got quieter. So here's the plan. We go in through the service entrance at 9 p.m. tomorrow night. You, me, and Chun. Chen's our shooter, best in the business. We take out the two bodyguards in the hallway first, silencers on. Then we breach the apartment. Grace's hand found Minjun's and squeezed tight. And the targets? Tommy asked. The old Korean woman and the black nurse. Grace Waters and Sung-hee Kim. Chin puts 2 bullets in each of them, clean headshots. We're in and out in 3 minutes. In the van, Agent Foster smiled grimly. That's it. That's everything we need. All units, prepare to move in on my signal. But then Tommy said something that made everyone freeze. Webb, I gotta ask, why are we doing this? I mean, Hendricks Biomed is finished. The heat is off. Why risk a double murder charge? There was a pause. When Marcus Webb spoke again, his voice was cold and full of hate. Because that Korean bastard broke my fingers. Because he humiliated me. Because he thinks he's better than me. Thinks he can just walk away from life and play hero. I'm gonna take everything from him, his mother, his girlfriend, his hope. And then, when he's broken and destroyed, I'm going to kill him too. This isn't about business anymore, Tommy. This is personal. Jesus, Webb. That's dark. That's justice. Now, are you in or out? Another pause. Then Tommy said, I'm in. Good. Meet me tomorrow at 8 p.m. The address is FBI. Nobody move. Through the audio feed, chaos erupted. Shouting. Furniture crashing. Webb screaming obscenities. The sound of someone running, then a heavy thud and a grunt of pain. Suspect in custody, an agent's voice called out. I repeat, Marcus Webb is in custody. In the van, Agent Foster pumped her fist in triumph. Got him. We got the son of a bitch. Grace burst into tears, but this time they were tears of relief. Minjun wrapped his arms around her. It's over, he said quietly. It's finally over. But even as he said it, Minjun felt uneasy. Something felt wrong. Marcus Webb had given up too easily. The plan he described was sloppy, obviously. Webb was a professional. He should have been more careful. Unless. Minjun's blood turned to ice. Agent Foster, was Webb working alone? Agent Foster was celebrating with her team. What? Was he working alone? You said he mentioned someone named Chun, a shooter. Did you arrest Chun too? Agent Foster's smile faded. She grabbed her radio. Team 2, confirm you have the second suspect, an Asian male, goes by Chun. Over. Static. Team 2 respond. Over. More static. Then a new voice came through the radio, cold, emotionless, speaking with a slight accent. Agent Foster, this is Chun. Your Team 2 is currently unconscious. They'll wake up in about an hour with terrible headaches, but they'll live. I'm a professional, not a monster. Agent Foster's face went white. How did you? You were so focused on Marcus Webb that you forgot to check if he was the real threat. He's not. He's an idiot who talks too much. I'm the one you should have been worried about. And while you were arresting him, I was breaking into Minjun Kim's penthouse. Grace gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Sung-hee. She's alone there. Minjun was already moving, running for the van's door. Wait, Agent Foster shouted. We need to. But Minjun was gone, running toward his building 4 blocks away. Dae-young appeared from nowhere, falling into step beside him, both men running full speed through the dark streets. Behind them, FBI agents scrambled to their vehicles. Agent Foster was shouting orders, coordinating a response. Grace tried to follow, but Agent Foster held her back. Stay here. Let them handle it. That's his mother. Grace screamed, tears streaming down her face. That's Sung-hee. But Minjun knew the FBI would be too late. Chun was already in his penthouse. With his mother. Minjun ran faster than he'd ever run in his life. His lungs burned. His legs screamed. But he didn't slow down. Please, he thought desperately. Please let me be on time. Please let Iyama be safe. He reached his building and burst through the front doors. The lobby security guard was unconscious on the floor. Minjun didn't stop. He hit the elevator button, but it was too slow. He headed for the stairs instead, taking them 3 and 4 at a time, his heart pounding like a drum. 24 floors. He ran all 24 floors in less than 5 minutes. When he reached his penthouse door, it was hanging open. The 2 FBI agents who'd been inside were sprawled in the hallway, unconscious but breathing. Minjun pulled out his gun. He still kept one, old habits, and entered the apartment carefully. The living room was empty. The kitchen was empty. His bedroom was empty. Then he heard it. A sound from his mother's guest room. A quiet voice speaking in Korean. Minjun moved toward the room, his gun raised, his whole body tense. He pushed the door open and found his mother sitting calmly on her bed, having tea with a man in black tactical gear who had a gun on the nightstand beside him. Minjun, ah, his mother said pleasantly, you're home. Come, have tea with us. Mr. Chin and I were just having a fascinating conversation about honor and duty. Minjun stared. This made no sense. No sense at all. Chun, a lean Asian man in his 50s with gray at his temples and cold, intelligent eyes, looked up at Minjun and smiled slightly. Your mother is very wise, Mr. Kim. She's been explaining to me why killing her would be a grave mistake. I don't understand, Minjun said, his gun still pointed at Chin. Lower the weapon, his mother said firmly. Mr. Chen is not going to hurt anyone. Yama, this man broke into our home to murder you. No, Chen said calmly. I broke in to evaluate whether you were worth working for. Marcus Webb hired me to kill your mother and Ms. Waters. But in my profession, we don't just follow orders blindly. We evaluate the target, the client, and the situation. If any of those three elements seem wrong, we walk away. He took a sip of tea. Your mother has convinced me that all three elements are wrong in this case. Marcus Webb is motivated by petty revenge. Your mother is a good person who helps others. And the situation is based on greed and ego, not justice. Minjun slowly lowered his gun. So, you're not going to kill her? I am not. In fact, I'm going to do something I rarely do. I'm going to testify against the person who hired me. Marcus Webb needs to understand that some lines cannot be crossed, some people cannot be touched. Sung-hee smiled and poured Chin another cup of tea. You see, Minjun, there is always another way. Mr. Chin here is a businessman, not a murderer. When I explained that killing me would hurt many innocent people who depend on the clinic, when I showed him the Ruth's Garden website and told him how many lives we're saving, he understood that this job was wrong. Chin nodded. Your mother also offered me a legitimate job, which I'm considering. A job? Minjun couldn't believe what he was hearing. Doing what? Security consulting for the clinic and for people who need protection from pharmaceutical companies. I spent 20 years in special forces before becoming what I am now. I'm tired of working for bad people. Your mother suggested I might enjoy working for good people instead. Before Minjun could respond, Agent Foster burst into the room with 6 armed agents behind her. Freeze. Hands where I can see them. Chin calmly set down his teacup and raised his hands. I surrender, Agent Foster. And I'm prepared to testify against Marcus Webb in exchange for immunity. I believe we can help each other. The next 2 hours were chaotic. Police, FBI, paramedics, the penthouse filled with official people asking questions, taking statements, documenting everything. Chin was taken into custody but treated more like a witness than a suspect. He gave the FBI detailed information about Marcus Webb's plans, his contacts, and other crimes he'd been planning. Grace arrived with more FBI agents, running straight to Sung-hee and hugging her tight. I was so scared. I thought, I'm fine, dear. Mr. Chen and I had a nice chat about his future career options. Grace looked at the assassin who'd come to kill them, now sitting calmly with federal agents, cooperating fully. She shook her head in disbelief. Mrs. Kim, only you could turn a hit man into an ally over tea. Sung-hee smiled serenely. My mother used to say, the best way to make an enemy a friend is to show them who you really are. If you are a good person, and they are a reasonable person, friendship becomes possible. By midnight, everyone had finally left except Minjun, Grace, and Sung-hee. They sat together in the living room, exhausted but alive. Marcus Webb will go to prison for a very long time, Minjun said. Conspiracy to commit murder, plus all the other charges. He'll die in prison. Good, Grace said firmly. Then she looked surprised at herself. Is that wrong? To be glad someone will suffer. I don't think it's wrong to be glad that someone who tried to hurt you will face justice, Sung-hee said. That's different from seeking revenge. Justice restores balance. Revenge creates more pain. Minjun looked at his mother with new respect. Yama, what you did tonight, talking to Chun, convincing him to walk away, that took more courage than anything I've ever done. It wasn't courage, my son. It was just a conversation. I treated him like a person, not a monster. And it turned out he wanted to be treated like a person. Everyone does, I think. Grace leaned her head on Sung-hee's shoulder. Your mother is the wisest person I've ever met. She gets it from her mother, Sung-hee said. And her mother before that. Wisdom is passed down, just like your grandmother's remedies. Each generation learns from the one before and adds something new. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside, the city lights sparkled. What happens now? Grace asked. The clinic is still burned. We still need to rebuild. We rebuild, Minjun said simply. But this time we do it right. Bigger building. Better security. A real medical facility where traditional and modern medicine work together. We have the money, the knowledge, and the support. All we need is time. And what about you? Grace asked Minjun. What will you do? Minjun thought about that question. What would he do? Keep running his criminal empire? Walk away completely? Find some middle path? He didn't have an answer yet. But he knew one thing for certain. Whatever he chose, it would be a choice that honored the people he loved. A choice his mother could be proud of. A choice that helped instead of hurt. I'll figure it out, he said finally. One day at a time. Sung-hee patted both their hands. That's all any of us can do. One day at a time, trying to be a little bit better than we were yesterday. And for now, that was enough. 6 months later, Grace Waters stood in front of a building she barely recognized. The old clinic, the one that had burned down, was gone. In its place stood something magnificent. 3 stories of glass and steel mixed with warm wood panels. A rooftop garden where medicinal plants grew in neat rows. Solar panels on the roof. A sign out front that read, Ruth's Garden Healing Center, where ancient wisdom meets modern medicine. It's beautiful, Grace whispered, tears streaming down her face. Beside her, Sung-hee squeezed her hand. Your grandmother would be so proud. Minjun stood on Grace's other side, looking at the building with satisfaction. The grand opening is tomorrow. Are you ready? Grace laughed through her tears. I don't think I'll ever be ready for this. Do you know how many people are coming? The mayor, the head of the medical board, representatives from 5 different hospitals, news crews. I'm just a nurse, Minjun. I don't know how to handle all this attention. You're not just a nurse, Minjun said firmly. You're a healer. You're a teacher. You're someone who changed the world by refusing to let knowledge die. That's worth celebrating. The past 6 months had been the busiest, craziest, most exhausting time of Grace's life. After Marcus Webb was arrested and Chin agreed to testify, everything had moved incredibly fast. The story of how Sung-hee had converted an assassin into an ally with just tea and conversation had gone viral. News outlets around the world covered it. People called Sung-hee the Tea Lady and the philosopher of Koreatown. She became a minor celebrity, which she found hilarious and slightly embarrassing. I just talked to the man, she kept saying. That's not special. That's just being human. But people disagreed. In a world that seemed to grow more violent and divided every day, Sung-hee's story gave people hope. It reminded them that conversation could be more powerful than weapons, that understanding could triumph over hate. Grace's Ruth's Garden website has been visited by over 50 million people. The videos of her teaching her grandmother's remedies had been translated into 37 languages. Medical schools started reaching out, asking if Grace would come teach seminars on traditional medicine. Pharmaceutical companies, the ethical ones, asked if they could study the remedies to understand why they worked. And the money started coming in. Donations from people all over the world who wanted to support the clinic. Grants from foundations that believed in integrating traditional and modern medicine. Even some guilt money from pharmaceutical companies trying to repair their reputations after the Hendrix Biomed scandal. Minjun had matched every donation dollar for dollar, pouring millions into building the new clinic. But he'd done something else too. Something that surprised everyone, including himself. He'd walked away from his criminal empire. It hadn't been easy. Some of his men didn't want to let him go. A few rival gangs saw his departure as weakness and tried to move into his territory. There were threats. There were tense meetings. There were moments when Minjun thought he might have to go back to being the person he'd been trying to leave behind. But Dae-young had stepped up. With Minjun's guidance, Dae-young took over the organization and slowly started transforming it. The drug operations were shut down. The illegal gambling was closed. The protection rackets were ended. What remained was turned into legitimate nightclubs, restaurants, real estate development, security consulting. It took 6 months, but eventually Minjun Kim was no longer a crime boss. He was just a businessman with a complicated past and a desire to build something good. Are you happy? Grace had asked him one night, about 3 months after he'd announced his retirement from crime. They were sitting on his penthouse balcony, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the sunset. Sung-hee was inside, cooking dinner and humming to herself. Minjun thought about the question. Happy is a strange word. Am I content? Yes. Am I at peace? Getting there. Am I proud of who I'm becoming? Absolutely. Do you miss it? The power? The fear? Control? Sometimes, Minjun admitted. For 30 years, I was someone who mattered because people were afraid of me. Now I'm trying to be someone who matters because I help people. It's harder than I expected. Fear is easy. Respect is hard. Grace leaned her head on his shoulder. But you're doing it. You're changing. That takes more strength than anything you did before. Over those 6 months, Grace and Minjun had grown closer. It wasn't romantic, not yet anyway. It was something deeper than that. A friendship built on shared trauma, shared purpose, and genuine respect. They understood each other in ways most people never would. Grace knew what it was like to carry the weight of other people's expectations. Minjun knew what it was like to try to escape your past. Together, they helped each other become better versions of themselves. And Sunghee? She was thriving. Her health was perfect. The blood-building tea had completely cured her rare disease. She volunteered at shelters, taught Korean cooking classes, and had started writing a book about her life. She'd also become something of a matchmaker, constantly trying to set Minjun up with nice girls and Grace with nice boys. "Yama, please stop," Minjun would say. "I just want grandchildren before I die." Sunghee would respond with a completely straight face. "You're not going to die. You're healthier than I am." "Exactly. So you have plenty of time to give me grandchildren." Now, standing in front of the new clinic, Grace felt overwhelmed by how much had changed. A year ago, she'd been a regular nurse working regular shifts, living paycheck to paycheck, keeping her grandmother's knowledge mostly to herself. Now she was about to open a major medical facility. She had a staff of 23 people, nurses, doctors, herbalists, acupuncturists, even a massage therapist. She had patients scheduled for months in advance. She had a book deal to write about her grandmother's remedies. She had speaking invitations from universities around the world. It was everything she'd ever dreamed of and more. So why did she feel so nervous? "What if I fail?" Grace said quietly. "What if the clinic doesn't work? What if people expect too much and I can't deliver?" Sunghee turned Grace to face her. "My dear, do you know what failure is? Failure is not trying. Failure is letting fear stop you from doing what you know is right. But you've already succeeded. You saved my life. You shared your grandmother's knowledge with the world. You stood up to evil corporations and survived. The clinic is just the next step. And even if it doesn't work exactly as planned, you'll adapt. You'll learn. You'll grow. That's what strong women do." Grace hugged her. "Thank you. For everything. For being like a second mother to me. And thank you for being like a daughter to me. Minjun is my blood, but you are my heart." The next day, the grand opening was more chaotic than Grace had imagined. Hundreds of people showed up, patients, supporters, curious onlookers, reporters with cameras and microphones. The mayor gave a speech about how the clinic represented the future of medicine. The head of the medical board praised Grace's innovative approach to healing. But the best part came when they opened the doors and the first patient walked in. She was an elderly black woman, maybe 80 years old, walking with a cane. She looked around the beautiful new clinic with wide eyes, taking in the waiting room decorated with plants and natural light, the comfortable chairs, the smell of herbs and healing. "Is this real?" the woman asked Grace. "Is this place really free for people like me?" "Yes, ma'am," Grace said warmly. "This place is for everyone. Especially for people like you. People who've been ignored by the medical system. People who can't afford expensive doctors. People who remember the old ways of healing." The woman started crying. "My grandmother was a woman from Mississippi. She used to make medicines from plants, just like this. But she died 40 years ago, and I thought all that knowledge died with her. Seeing this place, it's like she's alive again." Grace took the woman's hands. "What was your grandmother's name?" "Bessie. Bessie Williams." "Then we're going to dedicate today to Bessie Williams and all the grandmothers who kept this knowledge alive. Come on, let me show you around." As Grace led the woman through the clinic, explaining the different treatment rooms, the herb garden, the teaching space, Minjun watched from the side. His mother appeared beside him. "She's going to change the world, my son," Sunghee said. "She already has. And what about you? What will you do now that the clinic is open?" Minjun had been thinking about that a lot. "I want to start a foundation. Use the money I made from before to fund clinics like this in other cities. Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Atlanta. Places where traditional healing knowledge is dying out. We can save it. We can preserve it. We can honor all the grandmothers who came before." Sunghee smiled. "Your father would be proud of you." Minjun looked at her in surprise. She rarely mentioned his father, the man who'd abandoned them when Minjun was 5. "You think so?" "I know so. Your father wasn't a bad man. He was just a weak man who couldn't handle the pressure of being a husband and father. But you, Minjuna, you are strong. Strong enough to change. Strong enough to admit when you were wrong. strong enough to build instead of destroy. That takes a special kind of courage. Minjun felt something crack open in his chest, some old wound he'd been carrying for 30 years. I miss him sometimes, even though I barely remember him. That's okay. Missing someone doesn't mean they deserved your love. It just means you have love to give. They stood together, watching Grace move through the clinic, greeting patients, explaining treatments, laughing and crying and hugging people. She was in her element, doing exactly what she was meant to do. The first week of operation was overwhelming. The clinic saw over 300 patients, people with chronic pain, diabetes, high blood pressure, depression, anxiety. Some came for the traditional remedies. Others came for the combination of traditional and modern medicine. All of them left feeling heard, seen, and cared for. Grace worked 16-hour days, treating patients, training staff, doing interviews with reporters. Minjun worried she was pushing herself too hard. "You need to rest," he told her one evening when she was falling asleep at her desk. "I can't rest. There are too many people who need help." "Grace, if you burn yourself out, you won't be able to help anyone. You need to take care of yourself too." Grace looked up at him with exhausted eyes. "My grandmother worked until the day she died. She never stopped helping people. And she died young because of it. Is that what you want? To sacrifice your health for others?" Grace was quiet for a moment. Then she sighed. "No, you're right. I need to find balance. I feel like I owe it to my grandmother to work as hard as she did. Your grandmother would want you to be happy and healthy. Honor her by living well, not by working yourself to death." Grace nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll cut back to 12-hour days instead of 16. Minjun laughed. "How about 8-hour days like a normal person? 10 hours. Final offer." "Deal." As the weeks passed, the clinic found its rhythm. Grace hired 2 more nurses to help with the patient load. She created a training program where medical students could learn about traditional remedies alongside their regular studies. She started a community garden where neighborhood residents could grow their own healing herbs. The Ruth's Garden Healing Center became more than just a clinic. It became a community hub, a place where people gathered to learn, to heal, to connect. One afternoon, about 2 months after opening, Grace was in the herb garden showing a group of teenagers how to identify yellow dock roots. These were kids from the neighborhood. Some had been in trouble with the law, some were struggling in school. Grace had invited them to learn about plants as part of a mentorship program. "This root right here," Grace explained, "has been used for thousands of years to purify blood and boost energy. My grandmother taught me that every plant has a purpose. Every plant wants to help if you know how to ask." A teenage boy raised his hand. "Miss Grace, do you really think plants can heal people? Like for real?" "I know they can. Plants healed Mrs. Kim over there when modern medicine said she was going to die." Grace pointed to Sung-hee, who was across the garden, teaching another group how to make tea. "Plants gave her life back. But here's the thing, plants don't work alone. They work best when combined with good doctors, good medicine, and good people who care about healing. It's all connected." Another teenager, a girl with bright purple hair, asked, "Can anyone learn this? Like, could I become a healer?" "Anyone can learn," Grace said firmly. "Healing isn't about being special. It's about paying attention, caring deeply, and being willing to learn. You have everything you need already inside you. You just need someone to show you how to use it." The girl's eyes lit up. "Could you teach me?" "That's exactly what I'm doing right now." Watching from the clinic window, Minjun felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time: pride. Not pride in power or money or fear. Pride in doing something good. Pride in building something that helped people. Pride in being part of something bigger than himself. His phone rang. It was Daeyoung. Minjun. Sorry, I'm still getting used to that." Minjun smiled. "What's up? Just wanted to let you know, we finished converting the last warehouse. It's now a youth center with basketball courts, a computer lab, and a job training program. Everything you wanted." "That's great news. Also, the restaurant on 5th Street is officially reopened. No more money laundering, just really good Korean food. Your mother's recipes, actually. She's been consulting with the chef." "Of course she has," Minjun said fondly. "One more thing. Chin called. He wanted me to tell you he's officially working with the FBI now, helping them understand how criminal organizations operate. He says your mother changed his life, and he wants to thank her properly. Tell him to come by the clinic anytime. Yama would love to see him." After hanging up, Minjun went outside to the herb garden. Grace had finished her lesson and was sitting on a bench, her face turned up to the sun, looking peaceful. Minjun sat beside her. "Tired?" exhausted, happy, fulfilled. All of it at once. I have something to tell you, Minjun said. I've been working on a surprise. Grace opened her eyes and looked at him. What kind of surprise? Remember how you said you wished more communities had access to traditional healing? Well, I've been buying properties in 5 different cities. We're going to open Ruth's Garden locations in New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Houston, and Oakland. 5 new clinics, all funded and ready to go. We just need you to help hire staff and train them. Grace stared at him. You're serious? Completely serious. Your grandmother's knowledge shouldn't be limited to Los Angeles. It should reach everyone who needs it. Grace threw her arms around him. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is more than I ever dreamed. You deserve it. And more importantly, the people who need healing deserve it. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching Sung-hee teach the teenagers how to bundle herbs for drying. The afternoon sun was warm. Birds sang in the trees. The smell of growing things filled the air. Minjun, Grace said quietly, do you ever think about what your life would be like if your mother hadn't gotten sick? If I'd never given her that tea? Minjun thought about it. I'd probably still be running my organization. Still hurting people. Still empty inside, even though I had everything I thought I wanted. That sickness, as terrible as it was, it saved both of us. It saved my mother's life, and it saved my soul. Funny how that works, Grace mused. The worst thing that happened became the best thing. My grandmother used to say that every ending is a beginning in disguise. Was she ever wrong about anything? Grace laughed. Probably, but I like to think she was mostly right. That evening, the clinic held a small celebration for the staff. Nothing fancy, just pizza, soft drinks, and a chance to relax after 2 intense months of work. Sung-hee stood up to make a toast. 2 years ago, I was dying. I had accepted my death. I had made peace with it. But then Grace Waters walked into my hospital room with a bowl of tea that smelled like dirt and rain, and she gave me my life back. Not just my physical life, my real life. My joy. My purpose. My future. She looked around at everyone gathered. All of you here, the nurses, the doctors, the staff, you're carrying on something ancient and precious. You're honoring the grandmothers who came before, who kept this knowledge alive through slavery and oppression and poverty. Every patient you heal, every person you teach, every remedy you share, that's a victory against forgetting. That's a victory against greed. That's a victory for love. Everyone raised their glasses. To the grandmothers, someone called out. To the grandmothers, everyone echoed. After the party, Grace, Minjun, and Sung-hee walked back to Minjun's penthouse together. It had become their tradition, ending each day together, sharing a meal, talking about everything and nothing. I've been thinking, Sung-hee said as they rode the elevator up. I want to write a book specifically for grandmothers, teaching them how to pass on their knowledge to their grandchildren before it's too late. So many traditions are dying because old people think young people don't care. But they do care. They just need someone to teach them. That's a beautiful idea, Ayama, Minjun said. I'll help you write it, Grace offered. We can include my grandmother's story and your story. Show people that traditional knowledge isn't just about herbs. It's about wisdom, resilience, and love passed down through generations. In the penthouse, Sung-hee made tea while Grace and Minjun sat on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. Do you think we've done enough? Grace asked suddenly. Enough to honor our grandmothers? Enough to make a difference? Minjun considered the question. I don't think we ever do enough. I think we just do what we can, and then we do a little more, and then a little more after that. It's not about reaching some finish line. It's about staying on the path. When did you become so wise? I learned from the best, Minjun said, nodding toward his mother in the kitchen. Grace smiled. She really is something special, isn't she? Yes. And so are you. Grace looked at him. Minjun Kim, are you getting sentimental on me? Maybe. Is that allowed? It's definitely allowed. They sat in comfortable silence until Sung-hee called them inside for tea. As they gathered around the kitchen table, this strange little family born from tragedy and tea and choices to be better, Grace felt something settle in her chest. Peace. Purpose. Home. Her grandmother Ruth had spent her life healing people in a small Georgia town, never famous, never rich, never recognized by the world. But her knowledge had saved Sung-hee, had inspired a clinic, had sparked a movement. It has reached 50 million people around the world. And somewhere Grace was certain her grandmother was smiling. What are you thinking about? Minjun asked, noticing Grace's faraway expression. I'm thinking about how one person's kindness can ripple outward forever. My grandmother taught me. I taught you and your mother. You're funding clinics. Those clinics will help thousands of people. Those people will pass on what they learned. And it just keeps going and going, like a river that never stops flowing. Sung-hee reached across and squeezed Grace's hand. Your grandmother's river has become an ocean. And we're all swimming in it, grateful for every drop. They drank their tea, blood-building tea made from yellow dock root, dandelion, and red clover, the same remedy that had started everything, and talked late into the night about their plans, their dreams, their hopes for the future. Outside, Los Angeles glowed with a million lights. In hospitals and homes across the city, people were healing. In 5 other cities, new clinics were being built. Around the world, millions of people were learning Ruth's remedies, passing them on to their children and grandchildren. The knowledge was flowing. The healing was spreading. The grandmother's legacy was alive and growing. And 3 people, a former crime boss, an elderly Korean mother, and a black nurse with her grandmother's wisdom, sat together in the darkness, drinking tea and building a better world. One remedy at a time. One patient at a time. One act of kindness at a time. Because in the end, that's how the world changes. Not through grand gestures or dramatic moments, but through quiet choices to help instead of hurt, to heal instead of harm, to love instead of fear. Grace's grandmother had known that truth. Sung-hee had lived that truth. And now Min-jun is learning it too. The Korean mafia boss who'd once ruled through fear now built through love. The dying mother who'd accepted her fate now taught wisdom to thousands. The nurse who'd risked everything for a stranger now healed communities around the world. Their story had started with death and desperation. But it ended with life and hope and the simple truth that sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't found in a pharmacy or a hospital. Sometimes it's found in a grandmother's knowledge, a bowl of bitter tea, and the courage to believe that healing is possible, even when every expert says it's not. Especially then. The end. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to this channel to support our growth and hear more amazing stories. Drop a comment below and tell us, what did you learn from Grace, Min-jun, and Sung-hee's story? What wisdom from your own grandmother would you want to share with the world? Remember, healing is possible, change is possible, and it's never too late to become the person you were meant to be. Until next time, take care of each other and never forget the wisdom of those who came before you.